Celebrating 46 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, foreign ownership of farmland back in the news. In Mississippi, lawmakers get strong advice from their ag commissioner. In southern gardening, a holiday season redux poinsettias in all their glory. In the markets, Zach does a deep dive into post-harvest America just before the supply and demand report. And a food desert no more, a follow-up in this week's feature. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Thanks for joining us here on Farm Week and Merry Christmas. As we've reported here on Farm Week, foreign ownership of U.S. land is on the rise, including farmland, and we'll talk more about that shortly. In the meantime, the issue of enforcement. Who has the right to buy land, and what happens when landowners, for lack of a better word, commandeer natural resources like water? It's an issue seemingly without a solution. Colleen Bradford-Krantz has more.
Large swaths of the water-intensive crop alfalfa sit between the mountains in the McMullen Valley just west of Phoenix, Arizona. Over the past few years, the levels in the valley's ancient aquifers have been dropping, leaving some wells bone dry. A few neighbors have been complaining since the Emirati agribusiness El Dahara began farming about 3,000 acres several years ago.
In 1957, the water level below the surface where we're standing was 107 feet. So in other words, you drilled 107 feet to touch water. Today, it's 542 feet.
Part of the state's issue is not knowing the exact amount of water being pulled by the mega users from the aquifers.
In rural Arizona, basically, it's the Wild West. And it's subject to the law of the biggest well. So whoever has the biggest well and pumps the most groundwater wins. So it is not regulated in any meaningful way.
Arizona's governor yanked the state's land lease in October for another La Paz County alfalfa farm, one operated by Saudi dairy giant Al Marai Company. Foreign and out-of-state owners of U.S. farms are not banned from farming in Arizona, nor are they prohibited from selling their goods worldwide. U.S. farmers commonly export hay and other forage crops to countries including Saudi Arabia and China. Colorado River diversion has long been a source of water for the state, and curtailed allotments have also contributed to the issue of less water. In Arizona's Cochise County, where landowners rely on groundwater, residents worry that the mega dairy operated there by Riverview LLP of Minnesota could also deplete their water supplies. The company did not respond to a request for comment about its water use.
Regulation can be a slippery slope if not done properly. I think looking at an area and seeing what water is there and then adjusting accordingly with the proper experts and the proper knowledge, not just shooting from the hip on a political reason, it may be the proper way of doing it.
Just one example of the impact of minimal to no enforcement of laws preventing or limiting foreign ownership of land in the U.S., especially farmland. Along those lines, for quite some time, as we've reported, Mississippi has been studying foreign ownership of its farmland and has just released its final report designed to inform the state legislature and recommend action. Here are a few highlights as indicated in that report.
In the state of Mississippi, there are more than 10 million acres of farmland. More than 750,000 of those are owned by foreign interests, or more than 7%. Nationally, we have nearly 894 million acres of farmland. About 40 million of those are owned by foreign interests. That's roughly 62,500 square miles, bigger than the state of Georgia or Illinois or New York or 34 other states. Mississippi has laws restricting foreign ownership, but apparently has no workable enforcement mechanism. Unrestricted foreign ownership of Mississippi's farmland and water rights, especially by foreign adversaries, represents a serious concern to the state and to national security, including food insecurity.
Needless to say, foreign ownership of American farmland is continuing to raise a lot of eyebrows, especially those in government. I spoke to Andy Gibson, Mississippi's Ag Commissioner, about this on the phone recently. He had some strong opinions.
Our farmland is, as we've always said, it's our most valuable asset in this country. Food security is national security. Food production, our ability to produce our own food and fiber and shelter, which is agriculture, is the most valuable asset that we have in terms of the strength of our country. And when you have foreign governments and foreign companies coming in here buying it up, then for every acre they acquire, we no longer have American control of that production. And, hopefully they're going to keep producing, and hopefully they're going to be doing something productive with that land, but we have no way of knowing what their plans are with that. Some of these countries are buying it just for investment purposes. Some of them may have other ideas in mind. I think the greatest concern that the committee had, speaking for the committee, and I heard this from every member on the committee, the greatest concern was these foreign enemies that are declared enemies of the United States, such as China and Russia, Iran. And right now today, we have no way to enforce, to prevent, to restrict those enemy countries from coming in and buying up our land in Mississippi.
The work of Mississippi's Foreign Ownership Committee is now technically finished. Its final report is in the hands of state lawmakers. Commissioner Gibson says he expects some kind of action on the committee's recommendations in 2024.
In other news, the EPA under President Joe Biden is suffering a legal setback. A federal court ruled in favor of small refineries who said they deserved ethanol waivers but didn't receive them, forcing economic hardship. Peter Tubbs has more.
In a recent decision, a federal circuit court ruled the EPA had invoked an impermissibly retroactive standard to hold a group of refineries to the terms of the RFS. The case centered on the EPA's denial of 6 small refiner exemptions in June of 2022. The refineries argued to the court that they applied for the waivers based on previous EPA practices. The Biden administration denied those waivers in an attempt to put more ethanol in the gas tanks of American drivers. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit was not swayed by the EPA's argument that the Biden administration had made its intentions clear to take a more skeptical view of small refinery exemptions. The Fifth Circuit handles cases from district courts in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Over the past 3 years, the EPA has been denying small refiner exemptions at a higher rate than during the 4 years of the Trump administration. To receive an exemption, a petroleum refiner must prove the mandated levels of ethanol blendings are causing them undue economic harm. Production of gasoline in the United States is down 5.5% from its 2018 peak of 187 billion gallons.
On the lighter side, backed by popular demand before Christmas, we ran this story last week. You're probably already seeing a lot of these with the holidays coming up, and if you aren't, you will. But poinsettias aren't just Christmas red, they come in many other varieties too. Once again, here's Eddie Smith with the colorful story.
Traditionally, red and white poinsettias are very popular holiday season plants. Did you know there are many more colored varieties available? Let's take a look at some of these beautifully colored plants. Autumn Leaves is a beautiful poinsettia with its bright bracts displaying a rich golden yellow with small pink flakes. The yellow and pink colors intensify as the bracts begin to mature. Gold Rush is a similar colored poinsettia, and you can see why. The bracts have a bold, bright golden yellow coloration. Premium Ice Crystal has large rosy red bracts with pale pink to apricot centers spotted in red. The pattern appears to be quite uniform, producing a beautiful ball of color. These plants have excellent branching and dark green foliage. Viking Cinnamon Poinsettia has large, creamy, yellow bracts with rosy pink spots. The short, broad bracts are held flat above the dark green leaves. Marble poinsettias offer a change to the standard solid colors. Ice Punch is my favorite. I love the reverse red bracts and white centers of Ice Punch, but now there's a pink version called Sparkling Punch. It has pretty pastel pink bracts with a creamy white streak down the center that stands out against the dark green foliage. If you like variegated plants, then you'll love Tapestry. This selection has grayish-green leaves with pale yellow margins and bright cherry red bracts. Look for these and other gorgeous poinsettias at your local garden center this holiday season. I'm Eddie Smith, and I will see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up on our Farm Week feature, a success story in the Mississippi Delta, a Farm Week Encore. In a part of the Delta long considered a food desert, a town that played a prominent role in civil rights history, a grocery store comes to Marks, Mississippi. It was a long-awaited follow-up to our news coverage of a grand opening that puts smiles on the faces of everyone involved, and it showcases yet again just how extension matters. That's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith, and their right to make their own plans and arrive at their own decisions, and their ability and power to enlarge their lives and plan for the happiness of those they love. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. That these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. Looks like prices mostly split.
All the way around, although the biggest changes were in row crops. We'll get into it, but first, the numbers. What were last week's biggest gains and losses? And then, an extended row report, wheat, corn, soybeans. What's moving those markets leading into the new year? So, markets closed last week, mostly split, as we said, trending towards the down. Row crops hit the most. Let's take a look. Last week's biggest gain, wheat, up 24.5 cents, a near 4.5% rise from the previous week. Last week's biggest loss, sugar, down nearly 2 cents. May not seem like much, but it's a 7% loss from the previous week. So this week in our row report, we take a deep look into what's been moving those markets recently. When it comes to the economics of it, experts look at the fundamentals, that is, things that affect the economy as a whole. In wheat, for example, it's been the ongoing Ukraine war. Market analyst Arlen Suderman breaks it down for us for our main three row crops, wheat, corn, and soybeans.
And I think it's important to understand, if you try to correlate U.S. wheat prices with U.S. supply and demand fundamentals, the correlation is extremely low. We figure a correlation of 0.7 or higher is strong. and we get correlations of 0.1, 0.2, depending on the time period. So it's very low. It correlates better with Black Sea fundamentals or with European fundamentals because Black Sea sets the price. And once they run out, then it goes to Europe, the demand does. And once Europe's run out, then they come to the United States. And the Black Sea right now has lots of wheat. Ukraine is able to ship. Russia is able to ship. Now, looks like Russia has finally found a plateau price. For now, anyway, it looks like may hold. And so if that's the case, perhaps we find a sideways trading range now for a while until we can try to build a story for support. Fatigued is a very good way to put it because we've gotten tired of the headlines, so to speak, wary of the headlines. And it used to be that a headline of a missile attack, drone attack on port infrastructure would bring a sharp rally. It no longer does. A ship hitting a mine in the water no longer brings a market response. And so the market is assuming that Europe is going to work with Ukraine to keep its agriculture flowing, and that means keeping exports flowing. Russia has been unwilling to directly attack ships, although ships have been hit by running into mines or by an errant missile, but they're not targeting those ships per se. And so now we have military escorts of ships, et cetera. And land routes, we're going to find ways to move over land as well. The market's not going to care until or unless we get to that point where Ukraine has both the capability and the willingness to shut down or to curtail exports coming out of Russia. And we're assuming that's well below 50% odds now at this point. At some time that may happen in the future, and that will be a game changer for both the wheat market and the crude oil market, both. But for now, that's a distant thought in the markets. The big, huge speculative position, short position, sold positions were in the wheat market. Corn was also building up significant short positions. With wheat kind of stabilizing, that allows corn to stabilize a little bit. There's not a bullish story in corn until or unless we see a short safrinha crop or winter corn crop in Brazil. That would be well down the road. And so we get short covering rallies periodically, but that's about it from a fundamental standpoint. Every time I talk to our Brazil people about the soybean crop, they'll say, yeah, but it's the corn crop that we're concerned about. The safrinha crop, which is where they plant right behind the soybean harvester, plant corn for produce through the winter months. And so if that crop is short, that would increase our exports of corn in the next marketing year, so a year from now. So it's a long tail on that story. But on soybeans, the question is how much has excessive wet in the south and excessive dry in the north curtailed production? And I get wary of all the doomsdayers who are out there. Maybe it's my age because I've seen so much happen over the last 40 years. But if you look back at the history of Brazil production, and look at national deviation from trend. Over the last 30 years, they've only seen a deviation from trend of 10% or more twice. Once was 11% and once was 14%. And the year that's been most like this year in weather patterns is the 15-16 growing season for soybeans. And in that year, we saw an 11% below trend for the Center-West district. We saw 41% below trend for the Northeast, where it's not as concentrated planting. And the South was like 9% above trend, and nationally they were 8 to 9% below trend. So let's just say this is a 10% below trend year. That would be 147 million metric tons. We can go down all the way to 147 million metric tons without the necessity to increase U.S. exports because of increased production elsewhere. And because of demand, and USDA has the demand inflated right now in the balance sheet. And so it's going to take a while to really necessitate rationing demand with higher prices.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. We've got a good idea on our supplies right now, and the prices are looking to next year. We'll see how Brazil's crop goes. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. And now that special story about a little grocery store in Marks, Mississippi that we promised you a couple of weeks ago. We're proud to say that Mississippi State University Extension was involved in helping to make Jeffcoat's Family Market possible. Hear from producer Brian Utley, who, by the way, will be featured in a special Christmas memory a couple of weeks from now, is another example of just how Extension matters.
If you wanted groceries, if you wanted any type of produce or anything, you had to go out of town to get it. Quitman County has the highest food insecurity rate in the state.
Basically, because we were a food desert, for almost 4 years, there was no grocery store in the entire county. That's a long time.
I grew up here in Quitman County. It's my home, and we have a couple of dollar stores here, but they wasn't a meat market, a produce market there.
There's a lot of people in this county that are over 65, and they were having to pay people to drive them to the grocery store to and from.
It happened to me one weekend. I needed a lettuce to make a salad, and I thought about I got to go to Batesville just to get a lettuce, so I just did it without the salad that weekend.
Nobody can, make daily trips to the grocery store when it's 20 miles away. Right now, oh, I forgot I don't have this for supper. Let me run to the grocery store, a mile away is so beneficial.
I love seeing ribbon cutting. It's very exciting. The Extension Service, we may not create a job ourselves. I certainly did not open a grocery store, but we were a part of the puzzle.
With Dr. Rachel Carter, who's part of the Extension program at Mississippi State University, I reached out to her because I went on your website and read about how the Extension helped communities. Getting the grocery store open was a high priority for the Board of Supervisors and for the Board of Aldermen with the city. And so she was able to give me statistics that this area could support a grocery store, looking at the data.
Marks is such a small town. When you look at a town at that size, you actually have to look beyond the city limits. You have to look at the whole county, but you also have to look at what we call the trade area, which is where people tend to shop and basically form a community.
We have a demographic of people with high diabetes, heart issues, just a lot of health disparities. And I think that was pointed out in the research that was done through the Extension.
One reason a grocery store in a rural community is such a big deal and such an important deal is that it can help address health issues, because people need to have access to healthy food options and fresh food options in order to make healthy choices. And so that's a huge issue with keeping a small town together, is having a local grocery store.
Good morning. It was a big thing, and I kind of expected a lot of people. I have a lot of friends just from the Delta that wanted to come and, congratulate me, whatever. But I didn't have any idea that there would be like 4 different television stations there. But that was a little bit on the surprising thing.
I think we got the right man in the grocery store. He has a grocery store in Tunica that he opened and was running, and said he was looking to open another one. He just wasn't exactly sure where. So when the building came up for sale, they really started courting him.
I think we have a great opportunity here. It's the only store in town, the only store in the county for that reason. There have been stores here before that didn't make it, so I have to I have to say to myself, what do I need to do that no one else did? And I mean, I'll tell everybody I don't hunt, I don't fish, I don't golf, but I really enjoy what I do, and no one has to make me go to work, so I want to be there every single day.
It took the entire community, and I will tell you that a whole bunch of people never thought it would come to pass, but it is wonderful. I can tell you it's nicer than I've ever seen that grocery store.
Best in town, this the place. This was at the best in town.
I really enjoy taking care of customers. You can't get too busy for me. I mean, just say if the store can hold 300 people, bring in 500, I don't care. I've done this all my life, and if I get the people around me, it's going to work. I mentioned to you that it's not me, it's the people that make the difference.
It's providing jobs. I mean, like, he only brought 2 people from Tunica, so everybody else that he's hired are locals. So it's an economic impact, a positive economic impact where, that's huge for Marks, Quitman County in general.
It's bringing jobs, opportunities for people to work. Maybe Equipment County is going to come back, move forward, bring other opportunities here in the area. Since that store opened, the traffic have picked up in Equipment County. It's going to be a tax base for the town of Marks to really do improvement.
It brings me to tears to see the progress. With the opening of the grocery store, we got about 40 jobs. It is definitely a ray of hope, a spark of hope to have jobs come into the community.
A great job by the community leaders in Marks, Mississippi, with a little help from MSU Extension. Congratulations. Well, next week on the show, a new invention to save lives on the farm. Everyone knows how dangerous grain bins are. You could be completely submerged in 20 seconds and you could suffocate.
But now a father-son team in Nebraska has built a robot to keep you safe. One robot can handle up to 250,000 bushels.
It's called the Grain Weevil, and some are calling it the final frontier. See it in action next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube as well. See you next week. Thanks for watching.